cup of coffee, sit back and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life features stories to inspire and motivate you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. Visit cyacyl.com.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. There are more than 100 million single adults in the United States today, and 4 out of every 10 were already married once. Either through divorce or death, close to 50% of married people will become single again before the age of 50. If you're one of these people, you may be afraid to date or trust again, or you may be experiencing feelings of grief, loss, rejection, and anger. You may also believe that you're destined to spend the rest of your life alone. Today's guest, Dr. Terri Orbuch, says that finding love again, the right love, is 100% possible. Dr. Orbuch is also known as the Love Doctor, and she's spent decades directing a study on love, dating, marriage, and relationships. She's here to discuss scientific research that provides insight into the secrets to dating, what makes relationships work, and what keeps couples happy and together. Dr. Orbuch is the author of the new book, Finding Love Again, 6 Simple Steps to a New and Happy Relationship. She's a research professor at the Institute for Social Research at the University of Michigan, a professor at Oakland University, and the relationship advisor for ourteam.com. Dr. Orbuch appears each week on a Fox News Love Doctor segment and writes blogs and articles for Huffington Post, Psychology Today, and other national print outlets. She's also the author of 5 Simple Steps to Take Your Marriage from Good to Great. Welcome, Dr. Orbuch. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Joan. It's great to be here.
Dr. Orbuch, 100 million single adults in the United States, and yet when you're one of them, you feel like everyone else is a couple. It's one of the worst experiences you can have in life. So how can we get out of that mindset that we are all alone, that it's only us and everyone else is happily coupled up?
Well, I think it's important, Joan, to recognize that the same questions that you're having after you experience the death of a loved one, divorce, or a long-term relationship termination, such as, am I too old to date? Are there any available people out there? Is it worth it? If you're having that question, someone else is as well, Joan. And so I think it's important for us to recognize, for people to recognize that you are not alone.
I think that's really key because we just tend to think that everyone else has it so together and we're the only one that's going through this difficult experience.
And I think that's true always when we have a challenge in our relationship. Whatever I've experienced as the love doctor and a relationship expert is that that's true no matter what happens in our relationship. We think that we're alone, but what we want to try to do is to change our approach and recognize that all people, many people out there are having the same concerns, the same questions.
And I want to begin with one of the things that you just said, that one of our major concerns is that we're too old. And I know that feeling, when you go through this transition, you tend to think that the best is behind you. And now what? Maybe you're 45, 50, 55. You've had your kids. You did the family thing, quote unquote. So now what's happening? What is the direction of your life? Is there still good to come? Is there hope for all of us?
Oh, absolutely, Joan. What I have found in my long-term study of marriage, divorce, and new love, I've been following the same individuals now for over 25 years. I have found that 71% have found new, happy, healthy love again. So there is hope. There is the optimism that you can have that the future will be good and you can find a new relationship. And what we know, Joan, is that when you do, it helps you considerably. It affects your health, physical and psychological health, and it's positive for you in the future.
For us to get a better understanding about what may have gone wrong in our relationships, where do we get these wrong notions about relationships? Where do our ideas about the quote-unquote perfect relationship come from?
Well, first of all, I think many of us have those unrealistic beliefs and thoughts about relationships. And so, again, you're not alone if you have these thoughts. What I have found is that most of us have these unrealistic beliefs and thoughts about relationships. And where do we get them? We get them from our family members, our friends, the media, stories about love and relationships. For example, many of us hear time and time again that conflict is bad for a relationship. And that's an unrealistic belief, Joan, because all relationships are going to have disagreements. You're going to have conflict with your partner. You're bound to disagree. In fact, I don't know how you can't have conflict in a relationship. And what I have found is that it's not conflict that's bad for a relationship. It's how you deal with the conflict. If you deal with the conflict in a non-constructive, destructive way, that's when it's unhealthy and not beneficial for your relationship. So it's easy to see when we're watching movies and sitcoms, when we're reading novels, or even when we're watching our friends interact as a partner or as a couple, that they don't have any conflict, and if I do, that's bad. And so what I want to get us to do again is to switch those beliefs and have realistic ideas and notions of relationships. So after you experience a divorce or a death of a loved one or even a breakup, step back and really examine your beliefs about relationships. Make sure they're realistic, because if they're not, you're just bound to be frustrated, and that's what eats away at happiness and prevents us from finding new love again.
Dr. Terri, what are some of your most surprising findings from your research?
I think one of the most surprising things is that those single individuals who have experienced divorce or death or breakup, when they are optimistic and hopeful about finding love again, those individuals are significantly more likely to find new love again. So what that tells us, Joan, is that even when you experience a divorce, for example, and you are really not hopeful, you want to switch that approach and become hopeful, become optimistic, because when you are, that's when you're significantly more likely to find new love again. So again, have that positive, optimistic approach. And when you think about it, Joan, it's not that surprising, even though it was to me at first, because we like people who are optimistic. We're attracted to people who are positive, and that rubs off on the other person. It motivates us to move forward, and we're much more likely to attract people to our lives.
One of the things that I found interesting from your book was to learn that men are more likely to blame themselves for a relationship breakup than women. I would have thought for sure it was the other way around.
Yes, I think that also is very surprising. And I'm not sure if it's because men are actually doing things that break relationships up more, or they're listening and buying and accepting the stories and explanations for women. But what I want to say, Joan, also is that no matter male or female, what you want to remember is to blame the relationship, not yourself and not your partner. Because what I found in my long-term study is that when you blame the two of you, you blame the relationship, you use what I call a we statement. For example, we were too young, or we weren't right for one another, we were just incompatible. When you use that we statement, that's when you're significantly healthier after your breakup, physically and psychologically, as well as you're more likely to find new love again, because you're not feeling the anger and you're not feeling guilty or depressed. You feel anger when you blame your partner, you feel guilty or you feel sadness when you blame yourself. So very important for people out there to blame the relationship. Use that we statement in order to find new love again and in order to feel healthier after a breakup, after a divorce.
And I think that's really a key, what you've just described, because when you are getting out of a bad relationship or even a relationship you thought was good, when you're going through that transition, you do tend to put blame on the other person. And I know people that really revel in that anger and that blame. And I can see how you can get stuck and not be able to move forward from that.
So true, Joan. Most of us, most people out there definitely are feeling anger, and they continue to feel that anger. One of the other very surprising findings from my study regarding that anger is that divorced singles who were able to say, I don't feel much of anything for my ex, were more likely to find a successful long-term relationship than those who were grieving or held on to the anger. And so it's very important as well, after a divorce or after a long-term breakup, to let go of the past, become emotionally separated from your ex and from that previous relationship. And it's very difficult to do that. But if you do, you're much more likely to move on and find a new partner. And I do have some strategies that are very important for people to do in order to let go of the past because of that finding. For example, you want to find healthy ways to release the emotions, whether it be anger or whether for some people you're pining away or wanting that relationship again. And some healthy ways to release the emotions are exercising, volunteering in your community so that you focus on others, not yourself, engaging in creative activities that feed your spirit, or writing a very truthful letter to your ex, getting your emotions all out in that letter, but then tossing the letter in the garbage, not sending it to your partner or ex-partner, because this exercise is just for you to allow you to get those emotions out.
When we write a letter like that, do we hold on to it to remind ourselves of how we feel at that moment, or do we write it and then burn it?
I think it's up to you. One of the things that I encourage people to do is first to write the letter. If you want to see where you go and how you move and how you change, then yes, Joan, keep the letter. Put it in a drawer and then come back and write another letter 1 or 2 weeks later and then another letter 1 or 2 weeks later. It's a great way to see how you've changed, how your emotions are changing, how you're becoming more neutral. If you don't want to do the exercise again, then throw it in the garbage or burn it. The most important thing, though, is do not send it to your ex-partner. This is not an exercise for your ex-partner to see or for you to get feedback. This is an exercise, again, to find a healthy way to release the emotion.
And that's the key, because I can see all the send buttons on the emails going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. You don't want to send it.
Dr. Terri, we need to take a break. When we return, we'll talk about Dr. Terri's 6 steps to a new and happy relationship. This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life now has a free monthly digital magazine that can be read online or emailed to your inbox. Each month, nationally recognized leaders in their field provide the information that you need to inspire and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. As philosopher Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Use the wisdom provided in the publication and apply it to your everyday life. Visit cyacyl.com for more information or to begin your free subscription. That's cyacyl.com. Welcome back to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman, and our guest today is Dr. Terri Orbuch, relationship expert and author of the new book, Finding Love Again, 6 Simple Steps to a New and Happy Relationship. Dr. Terri, you've identified 6 steps that you believe create new and happy relationships for us after a breakup. And I want to go through some of these if we can briefly. But the first thing I'd like to know, is there a time for healing that should be between the breakup and beginning these steps, or are these things that we can begin immediately?
Well, that's a very good question, Joan, and that's one of the myths. I think that many people believe that you want to change. First, many people do believe that there is a predetermined time that you need to wait after a breakup, after a divorce, after the death of a loved one, before you get out there and date again. And what we find, research shows that there is no predetermined time. It is different for every individual. So what you're hearing out there from friends and family or the media that you need to wait 2 years or 1 month for every year you've been together are incorrect. Many people emotionally separate from a relationship while they're still in the relationship. So when they physically separate, when they don't live with one another anymore, they're immediately ready to date again. Others need to wait for that physical separation until they grieve or process or analyze what happened. So there is no predetermined time. Everyone needs to evaluate themselves and when they're ready. 2 questions that you want to ask yourself to see if you're ready to find new love again is, number 1, are you ready to trust someone again? And second, are you ready to really care, disclose things about yourself to someone else?
Well, you just mentioned trust, and I think that that's a really important issue for so many people, particularly if they've been involved in a relationship that there was some type of betrayal. So how can someone really trust another person again after they've been hurt so deeply?
First, it's very common, as you mentioned, to feel that you can't trust someone again, that you don't want to get burned, that you don't want to lay yourself out to someone to feel that hurt again. That's very common. It's very usual and typical. So that's the first thing, I think. But in order to get the benefits of a new relationship, in order to feel better about yourself, in order to get physical and psychological benefits, as well as to have someone to lean on in times of good and bad, I think, you need to put yourself out there again. So know that the first important step is to become emotionally separated and not associated with your previous ex. So what we talked about before, becoming emotionally neutral, is very important to trusting again.
So, Dr. Terri, let's go through some of these steps before we run out of time. And do these have to be done in any particular order? Do you need to do them from 1 to 6, or can they be as you heal and you evolve?
Good question. I think they do need to occur in the order that's presented in the book. The first 4 steps are really things you do yourself before you get out and date or explore other relationships again. And we've really gone over the first 2 already, Joan. Number 1 is you want to step back and examine that you have realistic beliefs and thoughts about relationships, because otherwise you're going to become disappointed and frustrated if you don't. Second, it's to examine your emotions to the past and make sure that you're emotionally neutral and that you let go of the emotional baggage connected to the past. Now, I want to say everyone has some emotional baggage, but you want to make sure that it's not heavy, not too significant. It's almost like getting on an airplane. Some of us have light carry-ons, and some of us have heavy carry-ons where someone says, no, you have to check this bag. You can't come on the plane until you do. Step number 3 is to examine your behaviors. What I found is that many of us get in these ruts. We do the same old, whether we're in a relationship or out of a relationship. But in order to find new love, you want to change some behavior so you get out of the rut and you're much more likely to find new love again. Again, these behaviors are simple behaviors. You can work 1 hour less a day. You can change the place where you eat lunch or dinner. You can join a gym so you're exercising differently, or you can change your approach to money. But some behavior needs to change for at least 21 days to get you out of the rut. And what I found is that when you do that, significantly more likely to find new love again. Step 4 is to examine your key life values. What I found is that most of us do a lot of compromising, and that's good when we're in a relationship, but when we get out of that relationship, we're not sure who we are, what our key life values are. So you need to find yourself again. Make sure you know your attitudes and your values so that when you do get out there and find new love again, you find someone who's similar to you in those underlying values and attitudes, because similarity is what keeps people together over the long haul, and that similarity in underlying values and attitudes.
So after we do all of the work on ourselves and we have a better understanding of who we are and what we want, you say it's time to go out there and date. Step 5 is to get out there. Where are some of the best places to meet someone new?
Well, there are 3 best places. Number 1, you want to join a group activity that meets regularly, because what we know as psychologists is what we call the mere exposure effect, M-E-R-E, exposure effect. Mere contact, seeing someone, increases liking. So you can join a gym class that, you go to every week, a religious group, a book club, any group that meets regularly. And this makes you feel comfortable, more likely to approach that person, talk, and that's when you're going to find someone who's similar to you. Second, you can get fixed up. Blind dates do work. And whenever I mention that, Joan, people always laugh and go, oh, no. But yes, they work. And finally, number 3, online dating. As much as people don't like that approach at times, it does work. It is successful. And we find it is safe as long as you follow some safety tips like not giving people money online, not disclosing everything about your identity online, taking your time to chat, being honest, then going from online to phone and then face to face.
And so we've met someone new. How do we know if the relationship is right or not?
Good question. I think there are 3 things you want to ask yourself. 1, again, goes back to trust. Do you trust this person? Are they predictable, honest with you, reliable, and do they have your best interests at heart? Are they thinking about you when you're making decisions about what to do or what to buy? Second, are you similar in those underlying beliefs and attitudes? Very important again. You want similarity in underlying beliefs and attitudes. And then finally, how do you do conflict together? And that comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning again. Everyone's going to have disagreements. Do you have healthy, constructive conflict? And if you can say yes to all of those 3 questions, then yes, this is a good and right relationship for you.
The book is Finding Love Again, 6 Simple Steps to a New and Happy Relationship by Dr. Terri Orbuch. Dr. Terri, where can our listeners go to get more information about you and your work?
Well, thanks, Joe. My website is Dr. Terri, D-R-T-E-R-R-I, thelovedoctor.com. All one word, Dr. Terri, thelovedoctor.com.
And as always, our listeners can visit our website, which is cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on our site, listen to past shows as podcasts, read the digital magazine, sign up for our mailing list, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Dr. Terri, thank you so much for joining us today. I think the information that you provided is really going to impact a lot of lives. And I want people to know that this is not just for someone who is single. Anyone in a relationship can take your strategies to help improve or maintain a happy relationship. So thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure, Joan. Thanks for having me.
This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.